stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Freedom Link, this 14th day of November 2014, Freaky Friday, hour number 2 of 3, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. Of course, I got the KBS crew here, Kev, Johnny, and Marty, and Gwen with me as well. And coming up in just a few minutes, Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton will be joining us. And the topic of tonight, my friends, is geoengineering. And one of the reasons why we'll get into geoengineering is because Aaron and Melissa just did a great article. They did an interview, a lot of research recently into the whole geoengineering thing. And my gosh, guys, I mean, this rabbit hole goes deep, doesn't it? What do you think, Ken?
Geoengineered just now, from the Californian drought to this polar vortex. One of those polar vortexes again, Joe. What's going on there, man?
I've never heard of a polar vortex before.
Up until last year, nobody had.
Oh my God. Okay, so anyway.
So what is a polar vortex then? What did we used to call it? Winter?
Yeah. Now, Gwen, you are right in the thick of the polar vortex, aren't you?
Freezing my polar vortex rear end off, yes.
Johnny Whistles is on his way to send some warming love your way, Gwen.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's all appreciated.
2 big hands.
Oh, that's so nice, Whistles, And that's the thing, maybe you put a wager now that you know that Scotland is such a force to be reckoned with in the football world.
But Joe, how bad is it that the mainstream actually think people are that stupid that they've forgotten what winter is? And what's worse is, how stupid are people for falling for it?
Well, it has been warmer over the last, 20 years or so. Well, not even, because it's been getting colder. You know what I mean?
It gets warmer and colder, colder.
Well,
That's
during the 70s. Gwen, during the 70s, wasn't it supposed to be an ice age?
In the 70s, I was in Central California soaking up the heat.
Okay, so
and I didn't pay one bit attention to the weather. We had fog and heat, 2 seasons
and that was it.
there.
That was it. Okay, so she only had fog and heat in California, but all I know is if you read a lot of the publications of the day, Time Magazine, Popular Science, things like that, you find out that they were talking about it being an ice age in the 70s. The hell with the global warming, it was global cooling. And one thing that we've learned is that, yes, these phenomenon are cyclical, but even more important, though, guys, we're entering into a time period unlike we human beings have never seen. For example, the sun is going into a period of quiet, but at the same time, our magnetic field is weakening at breakneck speed. And the pole itself, the North Pole, is moving faster and faster each year. So, what is the possibility of some sort of cataclysmic event like a pole shift or something like that could devastate the entire face of the planet? I think that would happen. Or be like maybe the story, The Day the Earth Stood Still. You guys remember that?
The answer to all of this is really simple, Joe. I had to hop back in for a second. I was listening on the stream, and I had to hop back in for a second.
Go ahead.
I have the answer to global warming. It's not global cooling. Yes. It's not taxes or any man, bear, pig. It's none of that.
What is it?
We have to arm the Syrian rebels. That'll take care of everything.
I forgot about the Syrian rebels again.
Yes, that's the answer to everything.
Anytime you don't know the answer to something, just arm the Syrian rebels. That'll take care of it.
What about all those loon balls, though, that started burying their heads in the sand? And I'm not just making that up. They literally buried their heads in the sand over in Australia to protest their Prime Minister for not putting climate change on the G20 agenda. I've got a top tip for those people. Please stay there with your heads buried in the sand.
I have a tip for people. Climate changes.
Get out of here.
It happens.
No.
Okay? Other things that affect it.
Popeye, you're just too practical.
You got to stop that.
Get conspiracy or freaky or something. It's Friday.
Yes, it is. It's Friday. Well, he did. He was talking about ghosts last hour.
It's all Al Gore's fault. How about that? Here's conspiracy. Al Gore is actually working with Man Bear Pig secretly.
You know,
he doesn't try to fight and save the world from Man Bear Pig. They actually work together. They hang out at the bar and they plot everything.
You did bring up the Syrian rebels, and today they announced that there was a treaty or some sort of agreement between ISIS and Al Qaeda. They've now joined forces to repel the invasion of Syria. So now it's Ice Qaeda or something like that, or Ice Qaeda.
Wait a minute. There's a treaty between Al Qaeda and ISIS. Really? How do you have? Do they have a treaty with the left hand?
My Lord.
Does the left hand grab the right hand and shake?
Cartoon.
How does that work? Do they grab each other's hands and shake? Does the left hand grab the right hand at the same
It'd
hand?
have to be the right hand grab the right hand because the left hand they wipe with.
Nice.
It's true.
So they're grabbing their own hand. Is that like
you never shake with the left hand? It didn't. Whenever you go overseas,
I know you're not supposed to put your left hand in the air. It's insulting.
Never.
You're supposed to
or show the sole of your shoes. Don't ever show the sole.
Very nice.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Yes.
But no, that's the thing is that here you go, the Syrian rebels, right? That was such a great thing you brought up because now
arm them, Joe, because that'll solve all the problems. Ask McCain.
Well,
and while you're at it, why don't you have John McCain pilot your airplane next time you need to fly anywhere?
But why?
Why ordnance on it?
But why the need to join forces? They're the same force, I thought.
That's what I know. Well, now it's terrorist kumbaya.
I know. Well, at least they're getting along. I mean, look at us in this country. We're a bunch of.
Look, you know what? Here's the answer to it: just arm the Syrian rebels, because I'm sure Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever they're calling themselves, Al ISIS or ISIS Qaeda, whatever the frick it is.
ISIS. That's a good
whatever their power couple name is. I'm sure they're going to come up with a power couple name like Brangelina has. Yeah, I'm sure the ISIS and Al Qaeda will come up with their own little cute power couple name, or the CIA will do it for them.
Well, what do you guys all make of the other global boogeyman, Vladimir Putin? The Russians have now released photographs, allegedly, showing a Ukrainian fighter jet shooting down MH17. And all this against the backdrop of all these world leaders arriving for the G20 in Australia, while the Russian Navy sits off the coast. What do we make of that, Joe?
Well, I just think it's a little bit of brinkmanship and a little bit of pomp, a little bit of circumstance, and that's about all it is, just like the Cold War was, dude.
Have you seen the image, the actual image that they're saying shows what happened? I don't know if I'm actually buying the image itself.
Me neither. I'll be honest with you. But, hey, anything's possible, Kev.
I mean, even the other day, there was reports going about that Samantha Luthwaite, the White Widow, the top terrorist mastermind, the bride of ISIS herself, the leader of Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, she was actually killed fighting for Kiev forces.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, they're just like killing off everybody.
It's just getting comical.
They killed him. They killed the one of the heads
the
of
White
ISIS
Widow.
The other day. But they killed one of the heads of ISIS too in an airstrike, and now he's not dead because he released some video or something. I mean, these guys, this is just getting ridiculous. Does nobody see they follow the same pattern? Come on. It's a freaking
How funny is
joke.
it, though, that the mainstream news that they're actually trying to get everyone to believe right now is the deepest woo of all on a Friday?
Yeah. It really is. The mainstream media is woo.
Dude, they want you to believe, okay, the official story of 9/11 is that some schmuck in a cave who's on dialysis with his laptop and a satellite phone. And that, look, people, well, I have a laptop. Yeah, it's 2014. This was 13 years ago, okay? Yeah. So a laptop from the late 90s, early 2000s, so like you're looking at like a gateway laptop. Oh, because they're dependable, right? So some schmuck with like a gateway laptop and a satellite phone in a cave, who happens to be on dialysis, I may add, directed 19 guys to infiltrate the most secure country when it comes to like intelligence. I mean, come on, the NSA is reading your email. You don't think they've been doing that for a while, right? So they're monitoring everything, yet they managed to get past all these checkpoints, all of these things. All government fails on so many levels, coincidentally, on so many different occasions. These guys get in, they strike us with military precision. Military precision. Countries, nation states haven't hit us this hard. Yeah. And I'm supposed to believe this. Really? Really? Oh, by the way, they make buildings defy the laws of physics. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marty.
Sorry to jump in there. I was just going to say, not to mention that most of the supposed Saudi hijackers were actually found alive, but we're just conspiracy theorists.
Oh, yeah, don't pay attention to that. Hey, guys, I didn't blow anybody up, and by the way, I'm still here.
Even the latest episode of Homeland, Popeye, had an alleged Taliban leader sitting talking about this very subject. He said, you came and you invaded our country when 15 of the hijackers were Saudi Arabians, and you brought up bin Laden. Why was his family the only family to fly out of America in the days after 9/11? There's something else that people need to look at.
How about people need to look at all the contracts that bin Laden construction got in Iraq and in Afghanistan for building bases? Well, what are you talking about? That was Halliburton and KBR. They outsourced a lot of things to other companies. One of those companies was bin Laden construction.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like money laundering is what happens. In the eyes of the American people, well, yeah, it's Halliburton that won it. But who they sub out to, you don't know. They don't have to tell you because they're the ones that's on the hook.
Right, but if you actually go do the research, you'll see it. It's
you'll see it. It's there, but
it's traced out. It goes to bin Laden construction, and then when you do if you believe what Steve Pachinik has to say, and other people have said that bin Laden knew he was dying back in 2001, Marfan syndrome. That's why he was on dialysis.
That's right.
There's reports on Fox News around Christmas of that year that he did Osama bin Laden die? Right, so you have him knowing he's going to die, makes a deal with the CIA. You can use me as the ultimate fall guy because I'll be dead, right? And you'll never be able to catch me and it won't affect me. And his family got all these lucrative construction contracts, right? Well, then when you actually go and do the research, you see bin Laden construction did get all these contracts after 9/11 happened with the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. But I'm sure that's just a mere coincidence, right?
Well, I would have to say it's, totally and completely happenstance.
Pay no attention to that. Never mind any of that.
Right. But I mean,
what's that?
But that, in fact, is reality.
Oh, by the way, those same jagoffs that brought you 9/11, the Project for a New American Century douchebags.
Yes.
Those are the people that are getting getting up and brought on shoulders back into office again.
Oh, I know that now.
And people are like, yeah, we need to. And it's this game. Get a Democrat in, he pisses everybody off for 8 years, and then you get the conservatives in, they piss somebody off, then the Democrat goes back in, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So, cheers, guys. Right. You're bringing Project for a New American Century D-bags right back in the office.
Yeah, and so there you go. But is there really much of a difference? I mean, think about this. Either way, their agenda's advancing, and as long as they keep putting the D's and the R's in there, nothing's going to change. That's just the way it is. And even if you, let's say, even if you could gather together enough people to get the vote and win, you still wouldn't win because they would fix it in a way that you couldn't. So it just
the time of vote is extremely close, and they can rig it. That's how it works. It has to be extremely close. It can't be. I think it's the guy that wrote the software, the one that died in the plane crash. He testified that it was I think within 4 to 6 points it had to be at the most that they could swing it, and it had to be close like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able. Because if it was 75 to 25 and they flopped it, they wouldn't be able to do that, and it would be noticeable that it was done. But they could do it and hide it if it's close. That's like the key one of the key signatures of vote rigging, and if they've stolen an election. And if you look at the presidential elections, They're always like neck and neck and neck. And by the way, if Mittens Romney had gotten in, it would be just as bad or worse.
Mittens, you say.
But see, now you have conservatives that are pissed off at Obama, and now they're going to ride these PNAC schmucks all the way into office. You know, let's vote for Rand Paul or Ted Cruz, who are both douchebags. Let's vote for Marco Rubio. That guy actually goes out and he has a quote plan for America, and it's his it's his his plan for a new American century, he calls it. Literally, he was on Fox News like, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, and I was doing shows saying this guy's calling for a quote new American century, and what he's calling for is like an extension of what they called for in the document Rebuilding America's Defenses, which came out in 2000. And then a year later you have 9/11. But pay no mind.
Hey, is that Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton? Are they they're here?
I totally interrupted. Hey, Popeye, it's great to hear you back on, too.
Hey, guys.
Hey, look, to top off what you're saying about the new American century, I just noticed that just by coincidence, the Democrats are ready to play ball on the Keystone Pipeline.
Yes.
And I'm sure not everybody saw the report, but about a month ago, I reported on how the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, called on both parties and specifically all of the 2016 candidates to advance their new energy initiative of passing the Keystone Pipeline, doing muchos fracking, and connecting the power grid down to Mexico.
Let the Indian Wars of the 20s begin.
Yeah.
They try and bring that pipeline across treaty land, and I swear it's going to be so ugly they don't even want to go there.
Well, and hopefully that, that there is a pushback to that, because, damn, I mean, the consequences of that Keystone Pipeline just environmentally is awful. Whistles, you had something you wanted to add?
No, it was just when Popeye was talking about Bin Laden dragging things through the Tora Bora, or whatever mountains are called. I don't know if anybody had seen Aaron Russo's video where he talks about when he was talking to the Rockefellers, one of the Rockefellers, and he was telling them that the soldiers will be busy looking for Bin Laden in caves. Do you know what I mean? This is supposedly way before this thing happened.
Yeah, he laughed and said that they'd be chasing people in caves that didn't exist.
Yeah, that's right.
That's exactly what they're doing. And then if you believe that the official... by the way, this guy coming out now, I shot Bin Laden, you guys realize what that's about, right? All that is to back up the official story.
Of course.
Same as releasing the CIA doll.
Right, and now he comes out like, I'm going to come out. And the Pentagon's like, you better not. I mean, really, guys? Really? This is like the most...
It's horrible theater.
Psychological operations 101. You people are effing ridiculous. But you know what? The general public will eat this up. I know.
Oh, they do.
I had a friend of mine ask me last night on the phone. We were talking, and he was trying to get my mind off things, and he's like, so what do you think about this whole thing with the Navy SEALs? And I was like, bro, I don't have the patience to get into the level of what's going on, but let's just say this is all crap, okay?
Yeah, total crap.
Dead for a long time, okay? And then first they threw him off the side of a ship, then they didn't throw him off the side of a ship. I mean, and by the way, how is burial at sea in accordance with Muslim tradition?
It's not.
Is the body supposed to face Mecca? How can you ensure the body's going to face Mecca when it lands on the bottom of the seafloor?
Very carefully distributed lead shot. Ooh, we did away with that a long time ago. Yeah.
Guys, maybe that's what the trained dolphins are for that the Navy uses. The dolphins
that's right.
would guide it down, and then they have them aim it. Really?
Yeah, there's no way they would have just dumped him in the sea. I mean, look at Gaddafi. That thing would have been all over the internet. It would have been the symbol of pride for the nation.
My favorite part was the original story where he was John Wooing it, like it was a John Woo movie, and he's like, Chow Yun Fat in The Replacement Killers, and he's jumping sideways with 245s really slowly, Matrix style, over. I'm sure he had an extra long cord going to his dialysis machine. He probably threw that over Matrix style first, really slowly, and then jumped, and then was dodging bullets. Oh wait, it didn't happen that way, right? Because then he didn't put up a fight. But at first he did put up a fight. I mean, come on. This is just absolutely ridiculous. The dude's on dialysis, and they're like, he's a terrorist mastermind. Oh my God. He's Superman. How do you elude like the most sophisticated, well-funded intelligence operation in the world. And this guy's on a crappy 1999 laptop in a cave with a satellite phone. I can't get reception on my phone in 2014 where I live. Okay? I can't get decent reception. This Jagoff's getting reception to his sat phone in the Tora Bora Mountains? Really? Really? And people are like, oh, yeah, it sounds plausible. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's plausible. It's sure. And speaking of plausible things, there's a lot of other plausible things that are going on around us, yet people discount them. And I can't imagine why. And you guys, Aaron and Melissa, you guys just did a wonderful interview and some great investigative reporting on geoengineering. And I wanted to bring you guys on tonight to talk about that because I can't believe that more people don't understand this to be true, especially since we've been messing around with the weather, heck, at least for the last 60, 70 years, if not more.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what happens, though, with scientific stuff. It's immediately over people's head. They don't readily disclose. I mean, sure, I know it's arguably in documents, and you could trace it if you do a lot of homework, but they don't readily disclose it to the public. It's not on the news. They don't have presidential debates about should we and how could we do it better. It happens well under the radar, and well outside of the public purview. And so if the public sees it at all, I guess they're not supposed to think about it. Basically, it's kind of strange. And yet, simultaneously, we're seeing some pretty serious weather events that are being more and more definitively tied, not just to HAARP in general, not just to general conspiratorial claims of weather manipulation, though there's plenty of evidence, but specific radar patterns, specific moments on the radar, specific data points about high-pressure systems. And that's what we got in the interview we did right here on True Frequency Radio on our show that's on Saturdays last week with Mike from the HAARP Report. He has a YouTube channel, the HAARP Report. And I got, he's a former military guy who is involved in engineering, and he follows these patterns quite closely. He monitors the data on a regular basis. And he first caught our attention when he had signaled that the California drought was most definitely being engineered and showed numerous examples of them spraying the jet stream, of high-pressure systems, splitting up hurricanes, and of overall moisture, both ordinary and extreme, being kept from reaching Nevada and California where it's needed most and where so much of the produce of America is grown. It's known as the breadbasket of America.
And
of course, we export a lot of that food as well.
Anyone new to this is going to ask, well, why would they actually do that? To what advantages would they actually engineer the climate to cause a drought?
Well, I don't know how to introduce this to beginners. I mean, I guess very carefully tiptoe into the water, right? Or just dunk them suddenly.
Dunk them suddenly works best.
Always just throw them right into the fire, Aaron. I mean, that's the best way to do it.
We follow this political stuff. For those that have been in this a while, we can understand at this point the Hegelian dialectic, problem-reaction solution. Sure. We can understand the motive for things like 9/11, for false flag school shootings, for political stoogery, one-upsmanship and all that. It creates a problem which allows a response, a budgeted federal response, a terrified and fearful, paranoid SWAT team and Homeland Security response, right? We get that. Okay? Anyone? Show of hands.
I get it. Yeah, absolutely.
With the weather stuff, well, you get to shut people down. You get to shut people down.
And think about how much money you can make.
There's a lot of data showing that Fukushima was the result of weather manipulation. It just was devastating to the economy of Japan at a time when they were kind of getting out of line on the economic global order. They always are interested in things like depopulation in places like Haiti. But specifically with the California drought, And as our source Mike from the Harp Report also said, this was the case with the Texas Dust Bowl. The first motive that comes to my mind that I see is if you kill the breadbasket, well, you're cutting supply on food and you're driving prices up. If you cause cattle to starve, it makes the head of cattle or the side of beef that much more expensive. But there's added advantages because this weather manipulation has come in tandem with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange weather derivatives market. Somebody, maybe in many cases an unknown somebody, is making a killing off predicting futures of the weather and basically trading on whether or not the weather follows certain predictable patterns or not. Moreover, there's the futures commodity market. But another thing that the environmental working group pointed out a lot of hazards.
Hold that thought, Aaron. We got to go to break. When we come back, folks, we'll continue with Aaron Dykes, Melissa Melton, and the gang when we return. Don't go away.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Joseph here. You're listening to the Freedom Link, hour number 2 of 3 of Freaky Friday, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm here with the KBS crew, Kev, Johnny, and Marty. I got Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton of truthstreammedia.com. I got Gwen Caldwell here, and boy, I'll tell you this, talking about geoengineering is so important, and there's so many facets to it. And Aaron, you were in the middle of a thought, so I'm going to let you finish it and carry on.
Well, first of all, we did point out for those who might be just joining, or if I rambled for too long, that there is evidence, technical data evidence, as well as political statements and white papers that this weather manipulation is going on. It's a very serious matter. But we also have a lot of information about potential motives, and that's profits to be gained from shortening the supply and, preying upon increased demand. But moreover, there's money to be made on the future commodities market. There's money to be made on the weather derivatives market, if you haven't heard about that. And a very big loophole exists in the already gigantic Farm Bill, which is contentious, but most of the arguments are over, which wolf is going to get a bigger scrap of steak. But as we all know, they subsidize a lot of the farming in this country, pretty much most of it to produce GMO corn, soy, and other related products. And most farmers out there aren't even getting subsidies at this point. But the farming subsidy market now pales in comparison by a factor of 2 or 3 to 1 to crop insurance. And the Environmental Working Group has done a big report on this. They've been the leading people on this, pointing out how crop insurance under the Farm Bill administered by the USDA is secret. The public is not allowed to know who receives crop insurance as when crops fail, etc.
Really?
This isn't subsidies for when fields lie fallow, or for farmers to produce cheap corn, although that's going on. This is crop insurance, I'm pretty sure, mainly for failures. And the recipients are not held, from what they have investigated, are not held by the farmers directly, but by, I would say, financial firms surrounding that. But the specifics have not been released. And although there's been pressure from some critics, it's not going to be released anytime real soon. So there are secret beneficiaries to crop failures. And the amounts are in the hundreds of millions, maybe billions. In fact, they're saying $8 billion paid out in insurance for crops in 2012 alone.
Well, there's no doubt, Aaron, let me say this. Think about the money-making opportunity, first of all. Yeah, so you've got crop failures, and of course, one of the easiest ways to cull the population is to starve them out. You can starve them out. That's one of the best ways. You want to kill people on a mass scale? Starvation's a great way to do it. But also, money-wise, think about it. If you can control the weather, then you can determine what region's going to have a drought, and then you can go on the commodities market and buy up buy big swaths of broccoli, and then, the San Joaquin Valley or whatever that grows 25% of the produce of the world just so happens to have a drought that year, and you end up making millions because of it,
And for those who doubt this. It happens under the name geoengineering. The QT made up cover excuse is that this is going to save us from global warming. And the big lie or misperception that's perpetrated is that this is theorized. This is something they're talking about as a backup. Al Gore would say, come on. Come on,
No,
this is a
not Al
backup
Gore.
plan. And John Holdren. But the loophole to that statement is that researchers are testing this, but the only way to do it is to test it on a massive, wide scale. But it's just scientific testing.
Snowpiercer.
Yeah, nice reference there. And so this is going on, and the reports out of the Council on Foreign Relations, out of the Royal Society in Europe, the report presented to the UK Parliament, the joint report to the US and the UK, all circa 2008-2009, point out that A, it's ongoing, B, there's no rules on the books to stop anyone from doing it, and C, any pending regulations are going to be global in scope. But right now, there is nothing to discourage a rogue billionaire from geoengineering the weather. And we also have pretty clear evidence it's happening in clandestine areas of the Navy, probably CIA, etc., these type of agencies. Maybe you know more about that, Joe. I don't know.
I mean, from a clandestine standpoint, not really. When I looked into geoengineering to begin with, it's kind of funny. It all started. It all started way back when.
Back in the day.
I got a call from Ange, and she goes, "Hey, look up in the sky. Do you see that?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll see sky and clouds and what's that?" And it was a grid, and I never noticed it before. Even though you look up all the time, just never noticed it. And sure enough, she goes, "You know what those are? Those are chemtrails." And I'm like, "Come on!" Well, that was what woke us up. Just driving home one day, she goes out on the deck, looks up, she's like, "What's that?" Just happened to notice, and that's kind of what put us down that rabbit hole. Now, before that, it was right around the time that Inconvenient Truth came out, and we were all, at the time when that first came out, we were like, "Wow, we're screwed," because we were plugged into the Matrix, no doubt. But when we saw the grid in the sky, and then we started looking as to what that was all about and what that meant, holy crap! I mean, our entire it just changed. It changed our world. It really did. And then you look at what else that does. Geoengineering is just one facet of that. And there's so many other things that they can do with this technology. And then, you look at things like, well, they privatize that industry as well. Just take a look at Weather Modification Inc. Go to weathermodification.com. Check out some of their customers. Look at their customer base. And they say, "We've been doing this now for over 50 years. Well, if they can do it in the private sector, why can't the government do it? Why can't governments of the world and Wall Street collude together to...
Well, that's the thing. They recognize and readily admit at their geoengineering science meetings that this stuff could cause droughts. It could cause uneven results. It could spark revolutions and uprisings and famines in foreign countries, what have you, right? And, the world might get pissed off if they can blame that on a country. You might hear rumors from a Cuba or a Venezuela or a Russia, but the public really isn't tuned into that, and there's no official rules to regulate that. But you've got organizations doing it in the scientific community. There's private firms who are seeding clouds and stuff. But the important update that's happened since the days of cloud seeding, which, as you mentioned, goes back a century, was used in multiple wars, may have been a decisive factor in certain operations of Vietnam and things like that, is that today the HARP arrays have been combined with the stuff they've seeded into the clouds, and there's a symbiotic effect. If you go listen to the interview, Mike from the HARP report goes into detail about that, but it's the same thing Nick Begich has reported on, that the weather manipulation, has gone into this technectronic age where they're bouncing the HARP signal off of the ionosphere, multiplying it off of these seeded particles, right? And as Nick Begich explains, this could also be used for mind control, but I'll just show you that door. I won't take you down that rabbit hole today, but it's incredible technology, and it's not just the HARP array that you've heard about,
right?
And that does exist, of course, in Gakona, Alaska. They temporarily shut that down because of government budget stuff, and they're phasing it out and all this. But there's lots of other official locations. Some of them are in the north in countries like Norway and stuff. But as Mike from the HARP report pointed out, they're also on places like this obscure island off the coast of Baja California, which was used to engineer the California drought. It's done from planes that do the seeding, and they now have these roaming sea-based radar ships, basically, that are operated by the clandestine Navy departments we were talking about during the break. And that's why I say there's clandestine involvement, because under the auspices of Star Wars and the Missile Defense Program, you've got ranking Navy admirals and stuff like that operating these ships. But what they're really using it for, according to the evidence, would be various aspects of weather manipulation.
Well, yeah, and because that's one purpose of it. But if somebody asks, they'll say, well, that's part of the missile shield.
But obviously, if they could do it from a ship, they could be anywhere.
And it would be. But think about that. Well, it's very akin to an oil platform, if you can think about that. So an oil platform.
And they have some that are on actual oil platforms.
Yes, yeah, they do. Very akin to that, some of these big, large arrays. And these arrays can be moved, like you said, and be put in a stable environment, meaning like it can anchor itself down to the ocean floor so that it's kind of immune to the weather and all that kind of stuff. And technically, they're not lying to you when they say it's part of a missile defense system, because it could very well be. But what they're not telling you is there's much more to it than just missile defense. And, weather manipulation being one thing. You brought up a great thing with mind control, because, a lot of people look at this as almost just too over the top. Oh, come on, man. They're not controlling the mind, blah, blah, blah. That Navy Yard shooter wasn't hearing voices. Come on. But you also look into research like Gwen towers and how they're supposed to, no offense, Gwen, go and...
were you named after the towers? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mom must be strange.
Yeah, she was.
No, I wasn't named after the towers. They were named after me.
Oh. Well, she does win minds over. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So these Gwen towers, they're all over the place. And then I looked into this, and maybe you guys can clear this up, because I'm a bit of a skeptic on this one. Organite. What the hell is organite?
Organite, it was termed and developed by Wilhelm Reich, who's, you could easily portray him as totally out there, or you might read about his stuff and find it's got a lot of credibility. Either way, he was on the cutting edge of basically the people side of weather control. And he believed in aliens and all this kind of stuff, but he was pointing to a government conspiracy in the 50s regarding engineering droughts, causing weather effects, maybe even this mind control stuff. And he developed a cloud busting technology where you could steer clouds and bring rain to a region. He demonstrated it. There were press reports, and he was allegedly in the process of, saving crops in Maine, where his headquarters were located, saving blueberry crops, from lack of rain, and then later in life, before they threw him in prison, rehabilitating the desert in Arizona. But organite comes from his research into the orgone energy. It's an energy he quantified and studied and did numerous papers about that is a life energy. It's distinct from electric energy, magnetic energy, electromagnetic energy, although it has some interactions with them. And basically he found that could be steered and directed and kind of concentrated through alternating layers of metal and organic material.
Very interesting.
Sure. So organite is an alternating layer of organic and metal material to direct energy.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of people, guys, building this stuff on their own. I see YouTube videos of people doing it. It's very interesting.
I know people who have done it like in their yards. They put the copper pipes with the resin and the metal shavings and different things around it. And they'll show pictures of chemtrails. They're all over the sky, but right above their house where they've got that, not a chemtrail one.
Get out of here.
It's true.
They
It's
have
true
a-
story.
There's a book out there that has diagrams and stuff on how to make a lot of that, and we just got it. I'm gonna have to go find it to find the actual title, though. So,
Are you going to make Organite?
Yeah, that sounds
I think we'd
fun.
like to. We like to do videos on it. Yeah.
I'd say
I'll make it if you're buying, Joe.
That's awesome.
They sell it in stores too. It's available in kind of rock shops and where they sell minerals and crystals and stuff like that. But the case is out there. If you want to research Wilhelm Reich and paint him as a loony bin, you can make that case. I think he was onto something personally.
Well, normally when you start looking at people that are extremely intelligent, what you find is that they often come off as that because of the lack of people skills that they possess and their lack of ability to interface with the rest of humanity, because they're just so out of balance. They're so gosh darn smart that the other side of the ability to socialize is just gone. So what happens is they get locked in a room and they develop these things, and people think that they're loony and
or they lock
crazy.
you in a roroom. That's what they did to Galileo. He was ahead of his time. So
way ahead of his time, no doubt. But think about that. So perhaps
It's the
he was
Orgone
onto
Accumulator
something.
Handbook. Sorry.
What's it called?
The Orgone Accumulator Handbook.
Sound like the uranium Pu 32 explosive space modulator.
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
A final note on Wilhelm Reich. If he were merely crazy, I don't understand why they didn't just leave him alone to live out his age and do his crazy research. What happened was he was a threat to the system, and the FDA orchestrated a very fabricated case to shut him down. They locked him in prison on contempt charges, and they destroyed his devices, his orgone accumulating devices. They collected and burned his books, and they banned the use of the word orgone energy in print. They legally banned it's one of the most obscene cases of censorship ever in America.
In America, they said that the word orgone that being printed in his books, that was actually a label. They got him under some technicality with labeling law. They called his books, anywhere that mentioned it, a label, and then said that all of them had to be destroyed. And they actually collected them all up and burned them in mass.
Literal book burning, maybe the most obscene since Nazi Germany.
So if he's just crazy and what he's doing doesn't make any sense or matter, why are they burning all of his work?
Yeah, because when I see crazy people in the street, I just kind of give them a smile.
You don't go
and
burn their shopping carts?
I just kind of move on and steer clear.
Not only that, but the government, how did $10 million they spent? A decade trying to build a case against this guy, and they finally got him, but it was on some kind of ridiculous technicality.
Isn't that how they always get them? I mean,
Something
come on, Gwen, you know that. That's how they always get them, on a technicalities, never on anything substantial.
That is a true story, and more and more, I see a plane crash, or I see a train crash, or anything like that. The first thing I want to know is who was on that plane, because somebody who's bringing something good for humanity was on that plane, and they just got assassinated. Period. They don't call it assassination, but by God, that's exactly what it freaking is. They're taking people off the planet that can undermine the control that the cabal and the elites have had on this planet. And we live in this death culture. We don't like you. We don't like what you're doing. You're a threat to our status quo. So you're dead. And I don't care if we have to take 300 people with you. You're all dead because you just happen to get on a plane with that asshat.
Yeah. And what's interesting about Reich is his orgone energy is a biological energy, was very much connected with feelings of love. It could be a very positive energy. And this is a system that uses fear. It preys upon people. It puts people in false emergency crises, false shortages to stunt people and keep them lower on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid to keep them from reaching higher states of consciousness. And it's interesting in the atmospheric study of orgone energy as it relates to cloud busting. Reich began to classify it as the positive orgone energy and then the dead orgone energy. And he associated dead orgone energy with everything from desert areas to electromagnetic pollution, EMF, to smog and other forms of chemical and synthetic pollution.
Oh, wow. That's basically
and,
everything
he quantified this in a very scientific way. But again, he was ahead of his time and the terminology was different. But he's pretty much onto the same thing that a lot of people are now realizing, that a lot of this computers and cell phones next to our intimate parts is having some unintended consequences.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, think about that. That's just one facet of it. But we bask in that negative energy or whatever. What was it? The negative orgone energy, or is that what you?
His term was dead orgone energy.
The dead orgone energy.
It doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But to think about that, when you, Gwen, you described it pretty good, like a copper pipe with, and what was it now? How did you build it?
There are crystals and metal shavings, and it's got copper. Usually, it has copper in it, or a copper. When you do it in the yard, outside in your yard,
okay,
you would have, maybe 3-inch copper pipe that goes up, and it would sit in that resin that has the metal, the crystals in the ground or in the resin. Now, there are smaller ones that you can wear as a necklace, or you can put them around your house. People do them in molds like candle molds and things like that. And they set them around their houses and stuff. But the big ones that I've seen in the yards, they're like, I don't know, they look like they're just big copper pipes.
Very interesting. Like I said, I have little knowledge on this, so it's
all about energy and how energy moves. And I believe that the crystals, because they vibrate at such a high rate of frequency, combined with the metallic energy in a concentrated, solid a mass or something, and then the copper pipe works as the conductor. So what it does is that copper tube is what releases the frequency that it pulls all that energy up and then releases all of that energy.
I see. Hey, Marty, could you define? I see you just put something up. Could you read that for the listeners so that they understand exactly what a cloudbuster is?
Well, yeah, a cloudbuster was a device that was designed by an Austrian physio psychoanalyst. I can't pronounce that name, sorry.
Yeah, Shack guy.
He was Freud's number 2 at one point.
One of them, they're smart guys. Obviously not selling propane and propane accessories, that's for sure.
Well, Reach said he could produce rain by manipulating what he called orgone energy present in the atmosphere. The cloudbuster was intended to be used in a way similar to a lightning rod, basically focusing it on a location in the sky and grounding it in some material that was presumed to absorb the orgone, such as the body of water, and that would draw the orgone energy out of the atmosphere, causing the formation of clouds and rain. And it's also said that he conducted dozens of experiments with this thing and calling the research cosmic orgone engineering. So something to look into.
Wow. That's huge. So if I put together like a big lump of this stuff,
I can go and watch videos of this on YouTube, actually in action.
Do you realize how out of this world this seems? It's so simple, apparently. You know what I mean? How come everybody isn't doing it? How come we're not developing the next pet rock? Seriously.
Because they want us more interested in our gadgets or iPhones than things that are actually all around about us.
I think it's also because the government suppressed it so hard and threatened anybody who, on a professional level, that was trying to work with it at the time.
Like that.
Yes, they would. And they've done it before with other things, too. And that's how they operate. You know, anything that goes against the status quo of what the government's trying to do, they'll come down on it hard. Yes, those are the most calming, soothing words I've ever heard. Thank you.
Yes. So much so that they care so much about our environment that they spray us with all sorts of aluminum and barium and every other thing under the sun. And another telltale sign, one that I always point out, of course, is the Monsanto aluminum resistant seed. Why would there be a need for that? Just out of curiosity. Because aluminum isn't exactly just so prevalent in our soil, or there's like, I failed to see where there's enough aluminum-prone regions to where it would be profitable for Monsanto. So something had to change, right?
Well, there is industrial waste areas, but yeah, it's definitely targeted at this new problem that's been created with the aim of intellectually patenting things and restricting it. But, you mentioned the aluminum and barium, and this gets us back to HAARP and the very principle of orgone energy. The directing of HAARP rays into the ionosphere, bouncing them back down, allow them to resonate with those metallic particles in the chemtrails. And if those are seated near or in proximity to clouds or to population centers, that allows that energy to diffuse in a very directed and predictable way, and allows them to break up storms, cause storms, bring rain, deny rain, or that crazy mind control stuff.
It's unbelievable how many uses machines like HAARP possess. Scientists out there like Tesla called it longitudinal EM. Wilhelm Reich called it orgone energy. I think it's all one and the same, if you ask me. I don't know. But I can tell you.
Metallic particles in a chemtrail would create a temporary antenna. Put it in a simplified way.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you do. Another term that we use in the military is ducting. It's kind of what you're doing, You're exciting the atmosphere with RF energy or some sort of energy. Unbelievable. Hour number 1's done. Hour number 2's done. Hour number 3's on the way. Holy moly. More to come when the Freedom Link's Freaky Friday returns in conjunction with the KBS show. We'll be right back.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Hour number 3 of Freaky Friday right here on truthfrequencyradio.com. I'm Joe Joseph. Along with the KBS crew, Kev, Johnny, and Marty, and Gwen is here, and also Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton of TrueStreamMedia.com. And, we're talking about geoengineering, we're talking about chemtrailing, and all of the associated technology with that, because it's so much more than that. But you guys brought up the latest interview you did with, what was the guy's name? HAARP, the HAARP Report, I think it is?
It was Mike from the HAARP Report on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. And, I was pretty intrigued with some of the radar images and everything else that he had, and was kind of walking people through on his videos. How I don't know how you deny it. I mean, you can actually see the spray lines on the leading edges of the storm and everything
on the
else.
Water vapor map. Yeah, and he said he's not even trying to explain. His videos are not directed at the average public. He's actually directing it at the people doing this, engineers, meteorologists, things like that. He's not actually trying to do a video for the general public, but the general public is catching on. And his videos, I mean, when I first started watching him, he was only getting a couple hundred views per video. Now it's in the thousands. And I suspect it's going to get much bigger. And I don't know, maybe they'll eventually pull his channel. I know there was another guy, Dutch Sense, who used to do similar reports. He's still on YouTube and he does other kinds now. But, there was several things that came out that he was threatened, that one of his friends was actually shot, that his house was broken into. They shot his friend. He did happen to not be there that night. I mean, stuff like that. It doesn't just happen to your average person as much as it would happen to somebody like that. And he's been credited with using these kinds of reports to basically call the Joplin tornado before it happened. And I remember, and this video was pulled down because his channel's been pulled down so many times. He's had so many issues with that. But I remember going on afterwards, and there were people who actually went on there and thanked him and said, if it wasn't for your video warning this tornado was coming based on HAARP, based on radar, my husband, son would be dead, So this is a very serious deal. But right now, I mean, just with this polar vortex, which is such we were even in a checkout line the other day, and the old lady who was checking us out, a nice elderly woman, was talking about how there's never been such a thing in her lifetime as a polar vortex, and she feels like because the weather's so screwed up, they're just making things up now. Because she said they never had that when I was a kid or a young woman. This is just ridiculous, and we've actually heard that from some elderly neighbors that we have as well. They're like, this weather is so screwed up. It's never been this way ever. I never remember weather like this as a kid, So, but the newest video that Mike put up, he actually shows how they're using a downburst, a HAARP downburst, basically to push this vortex, this cold air down and keep it over the country on purpose. And he clearly shows exactly how they're doing it. He's got all the maps. He explains it very well. I mean, the thing is, it's funny. There are all these trolls out there. As soon as you start talking about chemtrails or weather manipulation, there are places like Metabunk that are, I guess, paid professional trolls. That's their whole thing. I mean, they've attacked videos we've done before, articles we've written. They've tried to submit some of his stuff to Metabunk, and they won't touch it. They just won't even, they won't argue with him. I guess he just can't be. I mean, he's pretty thorough. And the way he explains it, I don't know how you would argue with it. I mean, we've already had the guy who's running HAARP right now as they're taking it down, or the Air Force guy that was in control of that, talking about how the whole purpose of that was to control the ionosphere. And if you look in the patent, it says that what that does is it can control the weather. I mean, so this isn't even a debate anymore, but people are still trying to argue whether or not that's happening. Meanwhile, we have people like Mike over at the HAARP Report, and it's just YouTube.com, and just search for the HAARP Report, because his channel is one of those big strings of letters like they do on the new Google mix with YouTube thing. But it's the HAARP Report, and the one that he did where he shows the polar vortex. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. He says, here's all the chemtrails, here's how it works, and I mean, it's geoengineering aerosols, I think he calls it. But that interview, I have to say, I have done so many interviews back when I worked at InfoWars, and since then, and at other jobs I even had previously where I had to interview people, and I have never done an interview before where I got chills talking to the person. I mean, he is absolutely just, if something doesn't happen here, and soon, we're going to have a very serious problem because of what they're doing to our atmosphere, because they're screwing it up so bad. And he said there's a what's that thing that's supposedly coming up, I guess, in a month or two? Sorry, I have to. That thing that Mike said was coming up in a month or two.
That one thing with that.
I got it right.
I can talk to him like that because I know that he knows what I mean.
Do you know the one thing with the people?
It's like a conference that's coming up.
The AGU fall meeting.
That's right, the AGU fall meeting. Which
about the AGU,
the American Geophysical Union meeting that's coming up pretty soon here, and let's see, is that the one that's
always in San Diego?
It's in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah, it's in California every year, if I remember.
San Diego had a related AAAS meeting with Geo.
Oh, pardon me. Yes.
This one's coming up in San Francisco, December 15th through 19th, I think it is. And he said if we really want to do something to really speak out about this, 15th through 19th December, we will send hundreds of people, thousands of people there to rally against it, basically, because he said that all of these guys
are a couple good guys with cameras
or something, because he said this is where they're going to put the next plans for what the next phase is of what they're doing. And he said that the stuff that they're doing in America, they're not actually, even though they are spraying in other places around the globe, and that's pretty obvious if you look at where some of these droughts just happen to be overpopulation centers only, and some things like that. It's you can see it. But he said the kind of stuff they do here is a lot more hardcore than the stuff they do in some other places because it's our government doing it. And he said that the next phase of this is going to be everywhere. It's going to be much worse than it is now. I mean, and he said that they're going to tell us what they're doing. It's going to be revelation of the method at this meeting, according to Mike.
Now, keep in mind, I spot checked this meeting and their planned schedule. The American Geophysical Union is going to have something like 7,000 oral presentations, 285 exhibitors. There's going to be a whole bunch of scientific experts presenting papers and students kissing up and all this kind of stuff. And it's going to be hidden somewhere in that big circus. So it's going to have like 24,000 attendees.
Okay, so in the vein, I had to hop back in here, guys.
Aha.
In the vein, I haven't been listening, so I don't know if you discussed this, but because I had to go take care of something. But in that same vein of doing more hardcore stuff here, have you noticed that when they spray, that they have like quicker dissipating ones now?
Mm-hmm.
They're not as quick as a regular contrail, but they look a lot closer to one than the old.
Strange.
So that you see, it dissipates faster, you crazy conspiracy
You're just crazy. Of course. Well, they're always getting better with the technology. That's why they don't need the HARP array in Alaska anymore. But we even have one on tape from just a couple of days ago where there's an old chemtrail across the sky, and it goes all the way across horizontally, and then a plane is flying across that one, and it looks from the ground vertically across that one, and the plane is spraying, and the one that's coming out is like a blue color compared to the one that's going across, which is white. It's like a totally different. It almost looks like an LED light lit up over it. It's really bizarre.
Oh, and they have them too where they
ever noticed? Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's just I don't know if any of you guys have ever noticed the ones where you actually see like a black line almost projected out in front of the plane. You can actually Google black line phenomenon, but how you explain this, I really do not know.
Cricket.
They just do X's in the sky here. I just put a video up the other day.
Yeah, you did.
It's got that halo that's always around the sun. I did a video a couple of years ago where I took two videos I shot on two separate days, and I put the dates up on that I shot them. Just go on YouTube and look up chemtrails versus no chemtrails, and you'll see it's two pictures of the same sky. It's two videos side by side of the same area, and one is the day that they sprayed, and one is the day that they didn't. You cannot tell me that there's not a difference between the two. The one you see is huge halo around the sun, and that's what you saw in the video I shot the other day and put up on YouTube. The same thing, that halo around the sun. But no, that's natural, because I don't ever remember seeing that when I was a kid. But hey, you know,
I know, right? I saw that the other day because we had this big rain that was coming, and 2 days before the big rain that we'd been waiting for, it wasn't even a grid anymore in the sky. It was just, you couldn't even tell if there were actual clouds anymore. It was just everything looked like chemical soup. But the sun had a huge rainbow halo around it, and it was huge, and it was creepy. And then there were trails going through the rainbow, and I mean, it just looked weird. It didn't look... It was like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, and for everybody out there that doesn't, maybe just getting into this whole concept, just go outside and look up at the sky the day before it rains. Because it seems to me, at least based on my observation, that they always spray the day before it rains. It's one of those days it always happens. Conveniently speaking, they maybe they're just trying to steer the storm. I don't know what there is. I don't even know to what extent it's happening, but it just so happens that every time before it rains, it ends up being a chemtrail day. So it's just one of those things I've noticed.
I had to ask Mike. I said, "Is any of the weather that we even have on this planet. Isn't any of the weather we have in this country real anymore at all? Because it just seems so manipulated when you constantly see that. Every time it rains here, I've noticed for like the last 5 times, every time it has rained, it has been like that. Every time. For about 48 hours before that, it's just chemtrails everywhere. And you can't tell me it's just atmospheric conditions. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. Because plus on top of that, when you look at the sky, it doesn't look right anymore. It doesn't look blue. It looks white. Down to the horizon. It takes a very long time lifting your eyes off the horizon into the sky till you get to a place where the sky is actually blue anymore. I mean, and that's not even on a day when there's chemtrails anymore. That's just on a day, like any day. When I go outside and look now, there's just no pure blue skies anymore all the way to the horizon. It's like a white, milky soup halfway up the sky. But I asked him that, and he said, no, there is real weather. It's just every time something major is about to happen, like a big rainstorm tries to move into California or something, they will steer it. They'll steer it away. They'll break it up.
Well, this is an important point, actually. It's not just minutia. A lot of people have heard about the Air Force report, Owning the Weather by 2025. That's their title. And it says weather as a force multiplier. And they argue it could make the difference in a military combat situation or, screwing up the weather in the country of an enemy. But think about it in the reverse. They're piggybacking on the natural weather systems. They're trying to disrupt the jet stream or multiply their effects on the jet stream. They're trying to meet a low pressure system with a high pressure system or increase a high pressure, They're doing mathematical steps against the existing weather.
I just think it's absolutely interesting. I went and I looked at Metabunk on the Bernard Eastland thing, and apparently they've totally debunked the fact that Bernard Eastland is his patents don't have anything to do with HAARP. That's what it says. Eastland did not invent HAARP. HAARP is just an ionospheric heater research facility. Eastland's own patent described such ionospheric heating as having gone on well before the 1985 patent.
Gummy bears don't cause diabetes. They're just a delicious confection enjoyed by children.
It's just interesting, how many people will go out of their way to keep the white picket fence and the house on the hillside all intact. But in reality, the reality that's been formed for us is crumbling around us right now, if you noticed, because people are becoming awake and aware as to what's going on. And one of the things that's going on, of course, is weather manipulation. And they're doing it so much now, guys, that they're having a hard time hiding it because it's happening everywhere. Because if you manipulate weather in one place, you got to do it in another. If you're stealing rain from one place, it's going to have a drought in another, so you got to do something about that. And it just seems to be this unending spiral down to until we hit a crash. And then it makes me think of Snowpiercer. The beginning scene where you see the spraying in the air, next thing you know, Ice Age. Oops.
The elite dream. Snowpiercer.
I know.
God, that movie, it's very bloody and violent, but it's so worth watching. It blew my mind because it was just, it's almost like the people who made it are lampooning the elite vision of the perfect society,
Exactly. It's almost like Aldous Huxley, you know what I mean? And Brave New World. Here's their utopia, and let me just show you a different side of things, And in this case, it's a microcosm of their perfect society. And is it really perfect? No, of course not. Especially when you got to eat cockroaches.
I'm more creeped out by what you said about transcendence and the nanodust, because a lot of people have said that these chemtrails actually have nanodust and smart dust that they're spraying out that they can manipulate and control. And I'm more creeped out about the idea of Bill Gates replicating himself in nanodust. That's not a world I want to live in. Jesus.
That's a nightmare.
Over in Afghanistan, smart dust was used routinely. You'd spray it over an area, and then these little dust particles could send back, if they'd have like little seismometers in them or something, and even some sensors that could sense a change in the environment, and it would transmit back. Now mind you, It doesn't transmit far, so it doesn't have really a long distance, but you could still pick it up, and that was a very valuable tool. And
Joe, that's something that you can use in these things, but when you start finding things like strands of blood, DNA, what is that all about?
Well, if you go to the Carnicom Institute, you'll find a whole plethora of research that Cliff Carnicom did on this. Dried red blood cells being sprayed out. What else are they putting out there? We look at things like, when I started looking into Cliff Carnicom's work and into the Morgellons disease that's out there, and the fact that, Morgellons in and of itself, how do you make, how does this thing make fibers inside you? Synthetic fibers at that. I mean, your body just manufactures that? It's some kind of fungus? Really? No. It's nanotechnology. And that's when people are like, wow, no way. I mean, come on, you're batshit crazy. No. These are the days that we live in. So it would behoove you to accept reality and carry on smartly as a responsible human being. But instead they don't. And these people are able to go about their business unhindered and with very little recourse because they've got everybody duped.
Yeah, because to tell you Morgellons disease is actually just a figment of your imagination. You're actually willing these things out of your skin.
Yeah.
That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Then can I will $100 bills out of my skin and just become rich?
Exactly.
Like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. I have heard that they say that to people, and it's nuts.
It's crazy.
Give me a break.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. So, chemtrails. Weather manipulation, of course, is one use. You guys talked about mind control. But, you brought up a great point.
That's something else that he said, and he said it after the interview was over, but I said, and I was half joking because I had to ask this question half joking, otherwise I'd go sob in the fetal position for 3 days. But I said, so are we living in the John Carpenter movie They Live or what? And without missing a beat, without wavering at all, without anything, he goes, oh yes, we definitely are. And it's just like that deadpan, just, it was not a joke. He was serious. And that's not the first time I've heard that from somebody who seems to have some intimate knowledge about how these things work. Because back when Aaron interviewed Catherine Austin Fitch, she was talking about stuff like that. She said she heard that on Wall Street back in the 80s. They were talking about brainwave entrainment, and it made her go home and throw her television set out. So, I mean... And skip forward, that's back in the 80s. That's
why is it every time
I
come into this call, there's always conspiracy talk? I mean, is this a conspiracy theory meeting or something? Are you guys trying to say there's mind control and stuff in the TVs and stuff? I mean, that's too much for me to handle. I have to go back and watch Dancing with the Stars. I'm out. I'm just kidding. Well, look at the stuff that what is that called? The S-Quad technology? That stuff. Remember the billboard? The A&E billboard, I played the audio.
Sound
you guys
technology.
Yeah, that stuff is creepy. Like, you walk into the beam and you could hear it in the microphone behind, like, and it came from behind your ears, like, psst, hey, is that real? I'm over here. Like, that's creepy. They can beam things into your skull. Can you get creepier than that?
Since we're just talking, I mean, we all know reality TV is extremely highly scripted. So I just don't feel like I'm all that convinced about reality itself, so-called, either. And I feel like movies like The Truman Show and The Hunger Games keep kind of rapping me over the head, like, dude, if they're going to do holograms and geoengineering and genetically modified creatures in a death sports arena in Hunger Games, or keep someone in a bubble and keep them from knowing they're on a reality TV show, what do we really think we're doing here, either? Because we're the most surveilled society there is of all time in history, as far as we know.
Well, maybe that's what reality TV is for. It's programming. So we're mimicking the programming, right? Not we, but the general populace is mimicking the programming that they see on TV, and it's normalized having cameras follow you all over the place. Like suddenly it's normal for you to have cameras following you into the bathroom and watching you pee or take a crap or whatever.
I mean,
shower.
I filmed a little kid. I don't normally film people's children, but we were at the post office and this lady was mailing stuff and she was trying to get her kid to, be occupied while she was busy mailing stuff, and just gave her cell phone with this really annoying loop of this song playing that was really, really annoying. And the kid was just holding it right by her face, and it just went on for a really long time. So I just filmed like 10 seconds of this kid holding this phone by her face because it creeped me out the way she was doing that. And the lady turned around and looked at me doing it. And so I just stood there for a moment and she just turned back around. Like if someone started filming my kid in public, and I stopped after that because I was like, I don't like to film children, but I would get frustrated, and that's why I stopped, because I was like, wow, I probably shouldn't have done that. But it just blew my mind that she was putting this phone right next to her kid's brain, like this little toddler, probably maybe 2 years old, maybe. And but it was like she just looked at me like, oh, you're just filming my kid. I guess that's just the way it is, normal, It's not really actually normal, but I've noticed that lately. Like I'll just pull out a camera and start filming somebody if they're doing something strange in public, because I don't know, I'm just fascinated by how bizarre things have gotten in the reality we all live in. And people are so used to being filmed, they don't care. I mean, I still care. We went to a concert the other night and just listened to a band. It was one of those small things where everyone stands in a small room. And people were texting while they were dancing, so they were kind of dancing to the music, but they were also texting at the same time. Groups of people.
You can't
you're not even
take
here.
the time to dance to a song without texting.
You bought a ticket to come here.
People text while they're in the bathroom. They have
Well, I mean, come on now.
My favorite is the guy taking a crap in a public bathroom, having a full-on conversation.
Oh, talking on the phone?
On speakerphone with his friend.
Joe does that all the time.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Joe does video chat on Skype while he's...
I do, yeah, I do. You're right.
I used to work an office job for the state before I came down here into Texas, and I'm telling you, that kind of stuff happened all the time. And I just, in the bathroom, people would have whole conversations about work, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
I don't get it.
You always know it by the distinct echo in the background,
Marcy and I had a rule that when we went out to dinner, because going out to eat was our thing. She used to joke. She said, the way to your wife's heart is through her stomach. And, I used to, if we went out, date night was going out to eat. And we had a rule that if you'd go out to eat, if we sat down, you turned off, you didn't have to turn the cell phone off, but you couldn't hold it or play with it or fidget with it. While we ate, we enjoyed each other's company, and we talked. And we looked each other in the eyes, and we spoke like normal humans.
Was it like Lady and the Tramp?
Yes.
Shit. But they don't have that anymore. They don't have that anymore. You go out to a restaurant now, and whole families of people will be sitting at the table, and all of them will have a smart device.
That's why we enacted that, because she looked at Mel, and she would be like, look at this restaurant. One time we were in, I forget what the hell we were eating, and she's like, look. And I looked over my shoulder, and she had a better view of the entire restaurant, so I had to turn around. And when I looked, everybody, I swear to God, almost every other table, if there were 10 other tables...
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Welcome back, everybody. Final segment of Freaky Friday here before we hand it off to Popeye. And Down the Rabbit Hole is, of course, his first show back, and you're going to go off the air now for a while, aren't you, Poopster? That's right.
Yeah, I'm going to go off the air for about 20 minutes or so. I got to go get ready. I got to go get everything lined up. It's the first time I've been on my show. It's exactly, like I said, it's been actually exactly 1 month ago today that she had her asthma attack. So it's been actually 1 month ago today that I was... off air, so I figured it would be proper to come back on tonight. Doesn't mean I'll be back on, like I said, every day, but
I could just see you now, dude. You're in training for the next 20 minutes. Are you going to run up the steps, dude? Come on, you're going to do that.
I'm going to go run up the stairs a few times.
That's what I'm
Some
talking about.
snow with the wooden whatever it was, a plow horse thing he had on his back, the stock, and he's running with his arms through it, and he's running through the snow, the hip deep
That's what I'm
snow
saying.
out in the Russian wilderness. Yes, that's what I'm gonna go do really quick.
Giant Napolitano on his shoulders.
Wait, you always do that anyway, though.
Yeah, that's how I get it. That's like my morning daily training routine.
Yeah.
Mel, now you let it out of the bag, and everybody knows.
I'm sorry.
By the way, I got to say before I hop off, I will say for the sake of your listeners, all kidding aside, so the listeners know, these fine men and women are some of the best friends a guy could ever have. Through the toughest time in my life, they have gone above and beyond the call of duty, more than I ever could have asked for. So since everybody's collected here, I might as well say thank you to all of you. And I truly do love all of you. You guys are my family. And, you know, so the listeners know, all kidding aside, these guys are awesome friends. You couldn't honestly ask for better friends. You really couldn't. Even all the ball breaking and stuff that goes on.
Oh, shucks.
You know, when the shit hit the fan, you guys took care of me. So I appreciate that.
That's what family does, man. You know what I mean? Yepper. And, you know, you don't have to be blood to be family. As a matter of fact, there are more people that have more blood relatives that don't act like family than, you know, people that you know that act like family. It's funny.
Very true.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that family actually means something, and it means a lot more than just being a blood relative. You know, that means that you love your friends unconditionally no matter what. And sometimes, you know, your friends aren't going to make or your family doesn't make the right decision, but you stand by them anyway. Or, you know, stuff like that. That's when you know that, you know, that's family. When they're willing to stick with you through the real bad stuff.
When you're at your lowest point is when you find out who your real friends are and who your family is. And, like, you know, you also find out what you're made of, but you find out, like, who your true loved ones are and stuff, and, like, who will stand by you and who won't. So
that's right. But hey, just like Andrian's in the chat room there, I just wanted to say that I still look forward to the day when I can suplex Popeye. And you know, he says he's going to get the stepladder out. That's not a
because you're like a good 8 inches taller than me.
But you could try that. But see, that's before the stepladder, you know, gets.
We have ladder matches. They have ladder matches. So instead of like us fighting,
the hell with that, dude. I just want I want Thunderdome. Let's just do Thunderdome.
I'll climb up on the side of the dome and jump off on you.
That's awesome, dude.
Take you down. I'll DDT you.
I'm totally cool with that.
Good old Jake the Snake Roberts. I'll drop you down. Bam!
I'm totally cool with that.
Did I just go back in time?
Yes, you did. And let me tell you something. When we were kids, just crisis wrestlers, nice guys. When we were kids, we used to go watch like WrestleMania, and then we would go out and like whoever's house we were at, we would go out in that person's backyard or front yard and reenact every match that we just saw. And usually somebody went to the hospital, and it was like a normal thing. It was fine. Somebody was getting a broken leg or you know, a slipped disc or, you know, shattering a pelvis. Something was going to happen that night.
I hate when
Brilliant. It was called being a kid.
Yeah, well, you know, we're not. Those guys are trained. See, the one thing is, those guys are trained to like work with each other, and we're actually suplexing each other onto the hard, you know, dirt out in the front yard, knocking the wind out of people, breaking ribs. You know, this isn't a mat with plywood underneath it and springs attached to it that flexes when you hit it. This was Earth.
Oh, Kev, do you have something to say, Kev?
You try to tell me, Popeye, that's all like fixed. The
Did I just wreck wrestling for you?
Come on!
Oh, wait a minute. Are you telling? You just told the King of Woo that the WWF is really fixed?
I know. I just wrecked it. I just wrecked it for him.
Next, you're going to tell me Santa's not even real, dude.
I remember when wrestling was actually a lot more hardcore and real, and people used to walk out of the ring bloody. That's how you know it was a real wrestling match.
Politics and wrestling, is it just me, or are they quite similar?
Wow. They are very similar.
One
Yeah.
has fancier costumes, but I'm not going to tell you which one it is.
Look back to the wrestling NWO stuff.
And right now you've got a character called Rusov, and he's fighting for Russia against all American champions every week.
What is
You're
that?
telling me it's
Exhale?
fake, Popeye.
Just,
Come on, man.
I don't even have anything for that. It's just,
There are not words.
Well,
just
you know
really-
well, dude, you know what it also shows? It just shows the sheepish nature of people and the fact that, you know, they'll just go along with whatever they're sold and whatever's on the boob tube.
America.
You know, yeah. Well, now
America.
you go ahead and you get ready for your show because I don't want to keep you. I'm not going to Popeye you by keeping you.
Nice.
You
You have now become.
I'm quite famous for that, am I not?
Oh my God, dude!
I do it on purpose. You know, I do that on purpose.
I know
right?
you do. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I know that. There's not a
games
doubt.
I play with my friends off air.
Yeah, and you're not going to do it to me now. So why don't you go ahead
Goodbye,
and
prick.
get ready for your? Thank you very
I
much.
love the rest of you, Joe. You're an ass.
Thank you so much. That's term of endearment. That's Joe and Popeye code.
Yes, it is. To the listeners, I'll see you in a few. Enjoy the rest of Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So speaking of the sheepish nature of people, you just did an article, Melissa, about the second grade. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was right before. The show. Somebody had sent me that on Facebook. Apparently, they have given out a homework assignment to 8-year-olds, second grade, that says that the government. It's a homework assignment about being a good citizen, and apparently the government grants you your rights or gives you your rights. I'm sorry. Quote, rights, quote, are special privileges the government gives you. So, just so you know, this is what they're teaching the 8-year-olds in this country. It's not that you just have rights, that they are inherent because you're here and they exist. It's the government grants you special privileges that are rights. It actually says when you are a citizen, you have rights. Rights are special privileges the government gives you. In our country, you have free speech. You are also given the right to choose a religion. In America, the press is free. In America, the press is free to tell you what is happening in the world. The Bill of Rights lists the freedoms given to citizens. These rights are very important. Many people in the world do not have freedoms like we do. Then the next part goes, because the government gives us rights, we have the duty to be good citizens.
I mean,
can we have a collective puke now? Oh my God!
I said puke in the video. I actually pulled out a sock puppet and retaught this in the video.
That's where it gets really good.
Because it was to the level where it needed a sock puppet to fix it. It's so bad.
Was it like lamb chop or something? Is that what you did?
I just made a sock puppet.
So you were playing with sock puppet?
I just literally went. I was like, "This is so bad."
These are the rights that never.
I am literally going to go make a sock puppet now and explain why this is wrong. That is why, and that's the kind of stuff you can find at youtube.com/TrueStreamMedia. Because it's called being a good citizen, and it's all what is a citizen? If you're born in the United States, you're a citizen. That means you're a member of the country. Blah 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 blah. Being a good citizen means you show your love to your country. I mean, this is what it says in here. This whole thing is a giant indoctrination barf sandwich.
Well, in the fifth grade books too, they're selling the Muslims brought down the Twin Towers. You know, who believes this stuff? And do parents not ever read their kids' textbooks and go to their classes and see what they're learning, and then we still have children in public school? What the hell?
Oh man, it's worse than that, because now what we have every year, what's been going on the last several years, is on 9/11 they will actually make kids who were not alive during 9/11 talk about what it would be like to be in the towers and get blown up by terrorists. And they do assignments where they show videos of the towers being blown up to kindergartners. It's like they're trying to indoctrinate all of the children who were not here at that time to be a part of that 24/7 fear fest. They're trying to get
I
all
don't
those
think it's so much about fear as it is I think it's the PTSD, because you can't watch that over and over again and not on some emotional, spiritual level have some kind of post-traumatic stress from it.
Oh yeah, because you're watching people die.
You know,
we all collectively watched a whole bunch of people die over and over and over because they just kept re-showing it over and over. I've actually done a video on that where I just took all the clips of the words they were using and put them all together in 60 seconds to show how many times they used these words that would just drive fear into your brain. And I did it just to prove a point, not to actually re-scar people. But yeah, it's horrifying. I watched probably 5 hours of footage to make that 60 seconds, and it's horrible, the stuff that was going directly into our brains that day.
It's more of the death culture that they're selling us, and it's not good enough that there's a whole 3-4 generations that witnessed it hour after hour after hour after hour for days on end. Everywhere you went, it was in your face, people weeping on the streets. Mm-hmm. But now children who weren't exposed to that are now being traumatized by it in public school.
Yeah, they made my daughter was in 9th grade last year, and they made her write an essay about what it would be like to be in the towers, knowing the planes are coming to hit the towers, what your last minutes would be like knowing you were in that situation. They made her do that as an assignment.
Yeah, that's great.
She brought it home to me, and I read it. Wow. I actually did a video on this, too, and I posted part of her assignment just to show people, because she was, what was she, like 2 at the time that happened? She was like 2 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
So she has no memory of that or recollection of that. But that's what they're doing. I mean, and after I posted this video, after this happened, this was actually in 2013 that this happened. But I got letters written to me from parents all over the country talking about my kindergartner was in class and they made them watch a video of the planes hitting the towers in class. But since then, I mean, we all know, we who were there at the time and were old enough to understand what was going on, we all know how that's been used to completely strip us of our rights and to completely rape the Constitution. But the kids coming up who weren't there at the time, people like the 8-year-olds getting this homework assignment that I saw today, that I did the video on, I mean, they're just being full-on indoctrinated from the get-go. This is what it means to be a good citizen. You don't have inalienable rights. You don't have inherent rights that were given to you by God. You just have, the government grants you special privileges that are rights. And see, what's not being said in that homework is that if the government can grant you something, they can take it away. That's the other flip side to that whole entire indoctrination piece, is to let these kids know you don't have rights because you just inherently have them. You have rights because the government gives you rights. And if you're not a good citizen, well, the government can take your rights away.
No.
But it goes on to say, someday, it gets worse. It says, good citizens take part in their community. They give to the poor. You know, Joe. Yeah, give to the poor. Unless you live in Fort Lauderdale, then when you give to the poor, you go to jail. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
then
exactly. Well,
it goes on to say, someday you'll be given the right to vote. This is an honor. That's what it says. That's what it says. Oh, really?
This is the contract you have with the United States, the corporation, the foreign corporation, to destroy the rest of your life.
It goes on to say,
you got her started.
Wait, it gets worse. It goes on to say, it says, this is an honor. By using this right, you can take part in the government.
Lucky us.
we got hey Aaron, we got feisty woman ping pong going on right now, and so that's what you do is you get them fired up by throwing them the ping pong ball, and then they just bat it back and forth. So this is great.
I could spew a lot of words about the Bill of Rights, and it's kind of a hobby of mine to read up on the founding fathers to try to get behind the mythology. And at the end of the day, there were different camps. The Federalists wanted anywhere from a new monarchy in the New World to a strong federal government to strong-arm the states, to pay taxes and do business as usual and so forth. But those who didn't want the Constitution saw right through it and knew the figures behind it and how they wanted to amass power and knew how the system, even under our precious Constitution, was just completely headed for tyranny and was going to take all their newfound freedoms away. And they would not ratify that Constitution. They demanded and they stalled and they just held out for years and wouldn't ratify the Constitution until the Bill of Rights were introduced. And even then, people like Patrick Henry and many others who were less famous didn't give in. But, here's the problem. These people came out of the Enlightenment age, out of the Renaissance age. They're the follow-up people to people who lived through the Dark Ages. The Europeans knew about tyranny in all these different countries. They had seen horrible kings and magistrates and religious figures, and they knew what could be done to people in the name of whatever. Today, we're re-entering the Dark Ages. We're not in an age of enlightenment. Well, that's not true. There's a schism. Some on the internet are being enlightened. Others are getting dumber by the day. Maybe they have that so-called stupid virus. I don't know. But it's like we've lost our wits. I don't know what to say.
This thing even gets worse. It goes on to say, when you begin to work, you will have to pay taxes. Taxes help to run our country. Roads, schools, police.
Well, was this like an April Fool's deal or what? I mean, is there anything in there that's the truth?
It was posted by a guy and it's got his daughter's name written at the top and her little kid handwriting. And he posted it on Facebook and tagged a bunch of alt media people and said, "Hey, come look at this. My daughter brought this home." And he was going off about it. But somebody sent it to me, and I saw it, and I went, okay, I can't. I usually, and you see these all the time, these horrible homework assignments that are coming out of schools these days, and the Common Core stuff is just ridiculous. It's like idiocracy, just tenfold. But this particular one, just really, it's like you said, I went, oh, puke, and then I had to do a video and make a sock puppet. So.
Tell you what, this just burns me to no end, and you can see what they're doing. I mean, you can see the agenda behind it, just like you can see the agenda behind the weather manipulation and everything else. This is all a concerted effort. And one thing that we talked about at the beginning of the show that I find is different now than has ever been before is the level of technology. We've had dictators rise and fall before. We've had world-dominating empires. But the thing that really was a game changer, at least in modern human history, is the level of technology that's there, and the fact that now our generation is facing singularity and AI, and that's huge. So not only are they doing this kind of stuff, manipulating the weather and yada, 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 but they're also moving forward to giving machines consciousness. And to me, that doesn't bode well. I don't know. What do you guys think as we got about 10 minutes left?
I mean, we were out yesterday and at the store, and this guy goes, someday we're just going to have a chip in our arm. And people talk like that now as if that is just normal and accepted and the way it's going to be, and that's how it is, so whatever. And it's just, I don't understand how people are so calmly walking forward into a dystopic nightmare from hell. I went, well, I'm not getting that put under my skin. That sounds horrifying. I will go live like Swiss Family Robinson in a tree somewhere. I'm not doing that. And he just looked at me like I'm the weird one for saying that. It's like I'm strange because I don't want to put a chip in my skin.
People are trained by the system to deal with everything on a very super instant gratification level. So anytime that paradigm is threatened and they might not be able to swipe their card if they don't have a chip, or they can't go get an antibiotic from the emergency room, they are going to do it. There is nothing about them, no part of their consciousness that's going to say, oh, damn, we've got a problem here. It's not, but those will be the very same people sitting in the churches every Sunday listening to those ignorant pulpit preachers. I don't get it. It's a contradiction even of their own, what they will tell you that their belief system is. They've known it their whole lives, and they'll talk their whole lives about the mark of the beast. It's coming. And then when it's right there knocking on their door, they're going to jump right out there, and they're either going to jump on the truck to the FEMA camps, or they're going to go get a chip so they can still swipe their little card at the grocery store. Never will it occur to them to go and spend $99 to buy an acre's worth of seeds to plant their own food and take some personal responsibility so that they don't have to do that. I don't get it. I don't. It's beyond me.
Well, according to Mike from the Harp Report, we really literally are working and living and breathing and existing in a they live type society. And it doesn't work on everybody, but it definitely works on a lot of people. And I mean, we did talk a bit about that, because after I asked him that and he said that, I made him explain a little bit further. But basically, yeah, some people are just, it's the eyes to see, ears to hear. It's how come there have been times I've seen videos of things where with chemtrails and things like that, where I've sent somebody who's, I guess, not awake, if that's the phrase you want to use, the video, and I said, look at this, doesn't this look really strange? And they literally do not see what I'm pointing out to them. They will watch the same video and they do not see it at all. It is as if it's not there for them. So, I don't know. I don't know how we can have Regina Dugan, who is a former DARPA head. She now works for Motorola, which is a Google subsidiary. She's sitting up on stage with a tattoo on her arm. She's like, we're going to authenticate our bodies like passwords, yay. And people are saying, wow, she's such a badass. That's so cool. I can't wait. What? You can't wait to get a tattoo from the government? What the hell are you talking about? Why would you ever be okay with? Why wouldn't that send off alarm bells in your head? Why can't you immediately think of 10 reasons why that's a bad idea? And then when I think of them, I'm crazy and I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't get it. You're right, I don't.
We knew that we wouldn't wake everybody up, but the thing is, I think we're finding out just how stupid people really can be. I mean, when they don't believe anything, even although it's in front of their eyes, they still don't see it, or there's nothing there to take it in. It's like a barrier it's round.
I mean, we live near Austin, and they're building one of the beta testing cities is there in Austin, and people are just toppling over themselves to live there. And so they can be monitored by the government and by mega corporations inside their homes every time they flip on an appliance. Why?
Well,
you think that's trendy?
Our city actually won a competition to be one of the flagship smart cities in the UK, Melissa. So, winning a competition.
Yay, we got a competition. I mean, these people live in these little electric boxes where everything in their home sends out a frequency every 5 seconds from every outlet they have something plugged into, and it's monitored by mega corporations and defense contractors and the government. They can't take a shower or a dump or wash their laundry or take out the trash without somebody knowing it somewhere.
Well,
why would you want to live that way?
You can't be trusted to do that by yourself.
And people don't see how this could be abused.
Any kind of apartment complex that in our area, which is pretty, we're in a pretty, we don't have a dense population centers. It's pretty, everything's spread out, pretty copacetic, very Republican, very Christian oriented philosophically. But every apartment complex that you want to move into, they don't just take an application. They're all subsidized now by HUD, I guess. Yeah. So you have to meet income requirements. Yep. They want to know
everything. They get into every facet of your life. And we have to end it now, Gwen, because we're we're out of time, and I got to thank Aaron and Melissa for coming on the broadcast tonight and talking about. Yeah, man, this has been awesome.
No, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Hey, Militia. And also, thanks to Popeye, and don't forget to stay tuned, because Down the Rabbit Hole, Popeye comes up, and he's doing it live tonight. And Kev, and Marty, and Johnny, and Gwen.
Pleasure.
Thank you. It's been great. So we'll see you guys all tomorrow night, maybe for Hangar 18, maybe not. Who knows? It'll be a surprise. We'll see you then.
Go
ahead.
I have the answer to global warming. It's not or global cooling. Yes. It's not taxes or any man, bear, pig. It's none of that.
What is it?
We have to arm the Syrian rebels. That'll take care of everything.
I forgot about the Syrian rebels again.
Yes, that's the answer to everything.
Anytime you don't know the answer to something, just arm the Syrian rebels. That'll take care of it.
What about all those loon balls, though, that started burying their heads in the sand? And I'm not just making that up. They literally buried their heads in the sand over in Australia to protest their Prime Minister for not putting climate change on the G20 agenda. I've got a top tip for those people. Please stay there with your heads buried in the sand.
I have a tip for people. Climate changes.
Get out of here.
It happens.
No.
Okay? Other things that affect it.
Popeye, you're just too practical.
You got to stop that.
Get conspiracy or freaky or something. It's Friday.
Yes, it is. It's Friday. Well, he did. He was talking about ghosts last hour.
It's all Al Gore's fault. How about that? Here's conspiracy. Al Gore is actually working with Man Bear Pig secretly.
You know,
he doesn't try to fight and save the world from Man Bear Pig. They actually work together. They hang out at the bar and they plot everything.
You did bring up the Syrian rebels, and today they announced that there was a treaty or some sort of agreement between ISIS and Al Qaeda. They've now joined forces to repel the invasion of Syria. So now it's Ice Qaeda or something like that, or Ice Qaeda.
Wait a minute. There's a treaty between Al Qaeda and ISIS. Really? How do you have? Do they have a treaty with the left hand?
My Lord.
Does the left hand grab the right hand and shake?
Cartoon.
How does that work? Do they grab each other's hands and shake? Does the left hand grab the right hand at the same age?
It'd have to be the right hand grab the right hand, because the left hand they wipe with.
Nice.
It's true.
So they're grabbing their own hand. Is that like
you never shake with the left hand? It didn't. Whenever you go overseas,
I know you're not supposed to put your left hand in the air. It's insulting.
Never.
You're supposed to
or show the sole of your shoes. Don't ever show.
That's very nice.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Yes.
But no, that.
I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
Fighting for humanity and against globalism. One mind at a time. It's the Freedom Link with Joe Joseph.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Freedom Link, this 14th day of November 2014, Freaky Friday, hour number 2 of 3, right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com. Of course, I got the KBS crew here, Kev, Johnny, and Marty, and Gwen with me as well. And coming up in just a few minutes, Aaron Dykes and Melissa Melton, they'll be joining us. And the topic of tonight, my friends, is geoengineering. And one of the reasons why we'll get into geoengineering is because Aaron and Melissa just did a great article. They did an interview, a lot of research recently into the whole geoengineering thing. And my gosh, guys, I mean, this rabbit hole goes deep, doesn't it? What do you think, Ken?
Geoengineered just now, from the Californian drought to this polar vortex. One of those polar vortexes again, Joe. What's going on there, man?
I've never heard of a polar vortex before.
Up until last year, nobody had.
Oh my God. Okay, so anyway.
So what is a polar vortex then? What did we used to call it? Winter?
Yeah. Now, Gwen, you are right in the thick of the polar vortex, aren't you?
Freezing my polar vortex rear end off. Yes.
Johnny Whistles is on his way to send some warming love your way, Gwen.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
It's all
welcome. I have
appreciated.
2 big hands.
Oh, that's so nice, Whistles. And that's the thing. Maybe you put a wager now that you know that Scotland is such a force to be reckoned with in the football world.
Game pattern. Come on, it's a
How
freaking
funny is it
joke.
though that the mainstream news that they're actually trying to get everyone to believe right now is the deepest woo of all on a Friday?
Yeah, it really is. The mainstream media is woo.
Dude, they want you to believe, okay, the official story of 9/11 is that some schmuck in a cave who's on dialysis with his laptop and a satellite phone. And that, look, people, well, I have a laptop. Yeah, it's 2014. This was 13 years ago, okay? Yeah. So a laptop from the late 90s, early 2000s, so like you're looking at like a gateway laptop. Oh, because they're dependable, right? So some schmuck with like a gateway laptop and a satellite phone in a cave who happens to be on dialysis, I may add, directed 19 guys to infiltrate the most secure country when it comes to like intelligence. I mean, come on, the NSA is reading your email. You don't think they've been doing that for a while, right? So they're monitoring everything, yet they managed to get past all these checkpoints, all of these things. All government fails on so many levels, coincidentally, on so many different occasions. These guys get in, they strike us with military precision. Military precision. Countries, nation states haven't hit us this hard. Yeah. And I'm supposed to believe this. Really? Really? Oh, by the way, they make buildings defy the laws of physics. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marty.
Sorry to jump in there. I was just going to say, not to mention that most of the supposed Saudi hijackers were actually found alive, but we're just conspiracy theorists.
Oh, yeah, don't pay attention to that. Hey, guys, I didn't blow anybody up, and by the way, I'm still here.
Even the latest episode of Homeland, Popeye, had an alleged Taliban leader sitting talking about this very subject. He said, you came and you invaded our country when 15 of the hijackers were Saudi Arabians, and you brought up bin Laden. Why was his family the only family to fly out of America in the days after 9/11? There's something else that people need to look at.
How about people need to look at all the contracts that bin Laden construction got in Iraq?
How is it that the mainstream actually think people are that stupid that they've forgotten what winter is? And what's worse is, how stupid are people for falling for it?
Well, it has been warmer over the last 20 years or so. Well, not even, because it's been getting colder. You know what I mean?
It gets warmer and colder, colder.
Well, during the 70s. Man. Gwen, during the 70s, wasn't it supposed to be an ice age?
In the 70s, I was in Central California soaking up the heat.
Okay, so
I didn't pay one bit attention to the weather. We had fog and heat, 2 seasons and that was it. There.
That was it. Okay, so she only had fog and heat in California. But all I know is if you read a lot of the publications of the day, Time Magazine, Popular Science, things like that, you find out that, they were talking about it being an ice age in the 70s. The hell with the global warming, it was global cooling. And one thing that we've learned is that, yes, these phenomenon are cyclical, but even more important, though, guys, we're entering into a time period unlike we human beings have never seen. For example, the sun is going into a period of quiet, but at the same time, our magnetic field is weakening at breakneck speed. And the pole itself, the North Pole, is moving faster and faster each year. So, what is the possibility of some sort of cataclysmic event like a pole shift or something like that could devastate the entire face of the planet? I think that would happen, or be like maybe the story, The Day the Earth Stood Still. You guys remember that?
The answer to all of this is really simple, Joe. I had to hop back in for a second. I was listening on the stream, and I had to hop back in for a second.
Yeah, that's the thing is that here you go, the Syrian rebels, right? That was such a great thing you brought up because now
arm them, Joe, because that'll solve all the problems. Ask McCain.
Well,
and while you're at it, why don't you have John McCain pilot your airplane next time you need to fly anywhere?
But why?
There's no ordnance on it.
But why the need to join forces? They're the same force, I thought.
That's what I know. Well, now it's terrorist kumbaya.
I know. Well, at least they're getting along. I mean, look at us in this country. We're a bunch of.
You know what? Here's the answer to it. Just arm the Syrian rebels, because I'm sure Al Qaeda or ISIS or whatever they're calling themselves, Al ISIS or ISIS Qaeda, whatever the frick it is.
ISIS. That's a good
whatever their power couple name is. I'm sure they're going to come up with a power couple name like Brangelina has. Yeah, I'm sure the ISIS and Al Qaeda will come up with their own little cute power couple name, or the CIA will do it for them.
Well, what do you guys all make of the other global boogeyman, Vladimir Putin? The Russians have now released photographs, allegedly, showing a Ukrainian fighter jet shooting down MH17. And all this against the backdrop of all these world leaders arriving for the G20 in Australia, while the Russian Navy sits off the coast. What do we make of that, Joe?
Well, I just think it's a little bit of brinkmanship and a little bit of pomp, a little bit of circumstance, and that's about all it is, just like the Cold War was, dude.
Have you seen the image, the actual image that they're saying shows what happened? I don't know if I'm actually buying the image itself.
Me neither. I'll be honest with you. But, hey, anything's possible, Kev.
I mean, even the other day, there was reports going about that Samantha Luthwaite, the White Widow, the top terrorist mastermind, the bride of ISIS herself, the leader of Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, she was actually killed fighting for Kiev forces.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, they're just like killing off everybody.
It's just getting comical.
They killed him. They killed the one of the heads
the
of
White
ISIS
Widow.
The other day. But they killed one of the heads of ISIS too in an airstrike, and now he's not dead because he released some video or something. I mean, these guys. This is just getting ridiculous. Does nobody see they follow the same